A selfish young millionaire takes in a beggar woman and her daughter into his garden. Getting to know the woman, better something changes in him, leading to... Alex Montero was walking through the vast gardens of his mansion. His steps were slow, almost hesitant, as if each movement took him further away from the world to which he supposedly belonged. At just 28, Alex was the heir to the Montero real estate empire, a name that carried the weight of generations of success and expectations. His impeccable suit and Italian shoes contrasted with the tired expression on his young face, marked by sleepless nights and days full of endless meetings. As he walked, Alex let his mind wander. "What am I doing with my life?" he thought, running his hand through his perfectly combed dark hair. Financial success was there, undeniable, but at what cost? Loneliness consumed him, an emptiness that no bank account could fill. His thoughts were interrupted by a distant sound, a muffled cry. Intrigued, Alex followed the sound to the edge of his property, where the high wall separated his world of luxury from the adjacent public park. It was then that he saw them, huddled under a torn blanket, a woman and a small girl snuggled up to each other, seeking warmth and comfort. The woman, who Alex would later learn was called Claire, had long shaggy brown hair and tired but still bright green eyes. The girl, Lily, must have been no more than 5, with golden curls and blue eyes wide with fear. Alex felt something break inside him. There, just a few meters from his life of abundance, were 2 souls fighting for the most basic survival. The scene hit him like a punch in the gut, making him question everything he believed he knew about the world. Without a second thought, Alex approached the rarely used side gate. "Excuse me," he called softly, not wanting to startle them. Claire looked up, instantly on alert. Her arms tightened protectively around Lily. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice hoarse but firm. Alex hesitated, realizing how strange it must have seemed, a well-dressed man approaching a homeless woman in the twilight. "Actually," he said, choosing his words carefully, "I was wondering if I could help you." Claire frowned, distrust evident in her eyes. "We don't need charity," she replied, pride evident in her voice. "It's not charity," Alex hastened to say. "It's humanity." He paused, searching for the right words. "I have a small house at the back of the estate. It used to be my office, but I don't use it anymore. It's got heating, hot water, a decent bed." He let the offer hang in the air. Lily looked at her mother, her eyes shining with a mixture of hope and fear. Claire hesitated, her protective instinct fighting against the promise of safety and comfort. "Why would you do that?" Claire asked, her voice mixing suspicion and a touch of hope. Alex smiled softly. "Because sometimes helping someone is the only thing that makes sense in a world that seems to have lost its way." There was a moment of tense silence, broken only by the distant sound of city traffic. Finally, Claire nodded slowly. "Just for tonight," she said, getting up and helping Lily to do the same. As Alex guided mother and daughter through the gardens towards the small house, he felt a strange sense of peace settle in his chest. For the first time in years, he felt he was doing something truly meaningful. As he opened the door to the house, Alex saw Lily's eyes widen in admiration. The small building, although modest by Montero standards, was a palace compared to the street. Claire entered cautiously, her eyes scanning every corner, still suspicious but visibly relieved. "There's food in the fridge and clean towels in the bathroom," Alex explained, keeping a respectful distance. "Make yourselves at home." Claire stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to decipher his true intentions. "Thank you," she finally said, her voice low but sincere. Alex nodded, feeling an emotion he couldn't name. "Good night," he said, turning to leave. But before he could close the door, he felt a small hand tug at his sleeve. It was Lily, her blue eyes shining with unshed tears. "Thank you, Mr. Angel," she whispered. Alex felt his throat tighten. Swallowing dryly, he knelt down to be at the girl's eye level. "I'm not an angel, Lily. Just someone trying to do the right thing." As he walked back to the mansion, Alex couldn't help but look back at the warm light emanating from the windows of the small house. Something had changed that night, he could feel it. A door had opened, not just for Claire and Lily, but for himself. That night, lying in his king-size bed, Alex couldn't sleep. His thoughts were filled with images of tired green eyes and golden curls. He knew that his life would never be the same again. What had begun as an impulsive gesture of kindness was about to turn into a journey that would change the course of 3 lives forever. The morning arrived with an almost unreal softness, rays of sunshine dancing through the curtains of the small house at the back of the Montero estate. Claire opened her eyes slowly, momentarily disoriented by the unusual comfort that enveloped her. Next to her, Lily was sound asleep, a small smile playing on her lips. Claire stood up silently, her bare feet touching the warm floor. She walked over to the window, looking out over the mansion's meticulously tended gardens. The reality of their situation hit her like a wave. They were sheltered, safe, but for how long? And at what cost? A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Claire hesitated, then opened the door to find Alex, impeccably dressed in a navy blue suit, holding a basket. "Good morning," he said, his smile genuine but cautious. "I thought you might like some breakfast." Claire nodded, stepping back to let him in. "Thanks," she murmured, her voice still laden with sleep and distrust. Alex placed the basket on the small kitchen table, revealing still warm croissants, fresh fruit, and a bottle of orange juice. The sweet aroma filled the room, making Claire's stomach growl involuntarily. "Mom?" Lily's sleepy voice came from the bedroom. The girl appeared, rubbing her eyes, stopping abruptly at the sight of Alex. "Good morning, Lily," Alex smiled, kneeling down to meet her. "Sleep well?" Lily nodded shyly, partially hiding behind Claire. "I've brought you breakfast," Alex continued, gesturing to the table. "I hope you like it." Claire watched the interaction, her eyes moving from Alex to Lily and back again. There was something about Alex's kindness that baffled her, defying all her expectations. "Why are you doing this?" Claire asked abruptly, her voice harsher than she had intended. Alex seemed surprised by the direct question. He stood up slowly, considering his answer. "Honestly, I'm not sure," he admitted. "I just know it feels like the right thing to do." Claire studied him, looking for any sign of falsehood. She found only sincerity in his brown eyes. "Well," she finally said, "thank you. But we can't stay forever. I don't want to be a bother." Alex shook his head. "You're not a bother. Stay as long as you need to." An uncomfortable silence fell over them, broken only by the sound of Lily nibbling on a croissant. "I should go," Alex said, moving towards the door. "Do you have everything you need?" Claire nodded, but before she could answer, Lily said, "Can I draw? I always used to draw at home." Alex smiled. "Of course. Let me see what I can find for you." He left quickly, returning minutes later with a drawing pad and a box of colored pencils. Lily's eyes sparkled with joy as he handed her the materials. "Thank you, Mr. Alex," she exclaimed, immediately sitting down to start drawing. Claire watched the scene, a knot forming in her throat. It had been so long since she had seen Lily so happy and carefree. Alex said goodbye, promising to come back later to see if they needed anything. When the door closed behind him, Claire allowed herself to relax a little, sinking into a chair next to Lily. "What are you drawing, darling?" she asked, leaning over to look at the paper. "Our new house," Lily replied happily, her pencil dancing across the paper. Claire felt her heart squeeze. "Lily, darling, remember, this is temporary. We can't—" Her words were interrupted by a sound coming from the adjoining room. Curious, Claire got up to investigate. The room, which she hadn't noticed before, seemed to have been an office. Shelves covered the walls, full of books and folders, but what caught her eye was a large cloth-covered screen in the corner. Moved by a curiosity she couldn't explain, Claire approached and pulled at the cloth. Her heart almost stopped. There, framed and preserved, was one of her paintings, a work she had created years ago, before everything fell apart. It was a scene of a park at dusk, with a lone woman sitting on a bench watching children playing in the distance. Claire felt her legs go weak, memories flooding her mind. How had her painting got there? How had Alex obtained it? "Mom!" Lily's voice brought her back to reality. "Is everything all right?" Claire turned around, forcing a smile. "Yes, darling. Everything's fine. But as she walked back into the kitchen, Claire knew that nothing was all right. The past she had tried so desperately to leave behind had somehow found her in this unlikely place. Sitting down again next to Lily, Claire watched her daughter draw, tumultuous thoughts swirling in her mind. Who really was Alex Montero? And what did it mean that he had one of her paintings? The small house at the back of the Montero estate, which only a few hours ago had seemed like a safe haven, now felt like the setting for a mystery that Claire wasn't sure she wanted to unravel. Days turned into weeks, and the small house at the back of the Montero estate became an unexpected refuge for Claire and Lily. A routine was gradually established, punctuated by Alex's daily visits. One particularly sunny afternoon, Alex arrived carrying a picnic basket. "I thought we could enjoy the day outside," he said, his infectious smile lighting up his face. Claire hesitated, but Lily's enthusiasm was impossible to ignore. "Can we, Mom? Please?" With a resigned sigh, Claire nodded. "All right, but we're not going very far." They settled under a large tree in the garden, the grass soft under the picnic blanket. Lily ran around chasing butterflies, her laughter echoing through the air. "She looks happy," Alex commented, watching Lily with a soft smile. Claire nodded, her eyes never leaving her daughter. "She's resilient, more than she should need to be at this age." Alex turned to Claire, his expression serious. "Claire, I know you don't trust me completely, and I understand, but I'd like you to know that I'm here if you want to talk, about anything." Claire was silent for a moment, debating internally. Finally, she spoke. "Why do you have one of my paintings?" Alex seemed surprised by the direct question. "So it really was yours? I bought it in a gallery a few years ago. Something about it touched me deeply. The loneliness, the nostalgia. It spoke to me in a way I couldn't explain." Claire felt a lump in her throat. "That was the last painting I sold before everything fell apart." Alex waited patiently, giving Claire space to continue if she wanted to. With a deep sigh, Claire began to speak. "I was a promising artist. I had exhibitions booked, critics interested in my work. Then there was a fire in my studio. I lost everything. My paintings, my materials, my contracts. The debts piled up, and before I knew it, Lily and I were out on the street." Alex listened intently, his heart squeezing with every word. "I'm so sorry, Claire. I can't imagine how hard it must have been." Claire shrugged, trying to look nonchalant, but Alex could see the pain in her eyes. "Life happens. I've learned to deal with it." "But you didn't have to deal with it alone," Alex said softly. "You still don't." Claire stared at him, looking for any sign of falsehood in his words. She found only sincerity. "What about you, Alex? Why would a millionaire heir care about two homeless strangers?" It was Alex's turn to sigh. "Because despite all the money and success, I felt as lost and alone as that woman in your painting. Seeing you two that night, something changed inside me. I realized that I had the chance to do something meaningful, something beyond the expectations of my family and society." Lily came running back at that moment, throwing herself into her mother's arms. "Mommy, I saw a rabbit. It was so cute." Claire smiled, hugging her daughter. "That's wonderful, darling. Maybe we can draw him later. What do you think?" Lily's eyes sparkled. "Yes, Mr. Alex, will you draw with us?" Alex laughed. "Oh, Lily, believe me, you don't want to see my drawings. They look more like scribbles than art." "I can teach you," Lily offered enthusiastically. "You know," Alex said, looking from Lily to Claire, "I'd love to learn from both of you." Claire felt something change inside her at that moment. The barrier she had built slowly began to crumble. "Maybe," she began hesitantly, "maybe we could try painting together sometime, if you want." Alex's smile lit up his face. "I'd love that." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the three of them remained under the tree, talking and laughing. Lily fell asleep on Claire's lap, exhausted from her adventure in the garden. "We should go back," Claire said softly, not wanting to disturb Lily. Alex nodded, getting up to help Claire. When she stood up, still holding Lily, their eyes met. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. "Thank you," Claire whispered. For everything. Alex smiled softly. There's no need to thank me. I'm glad you're here. As they walked back to the small house, Claire felt a strange mixture of emotions. Fear of the uncertain future, gratitude for Alex's kindness, and something else she wasn't yet ready to name. That night, lying in bed with Lily cuddled up next to her, Claire reflected on the last few weeks. Life as she knew it had changed drastically once again. But this time, for the first time in a long time, the change didn't seem frightening. Staring at her sleeping daughter, Claire made a silent promise. She didn't know what the future held, but she was determined to give Lily the life she deserved. And maybe, just maybe, she could also rebuild her own dreams in the process. On the other side of the estate, in the large mansion, Alex was also awake, his thoughts full of a certain green-eyed artist and her brave daughter. He knew that his life would never be the same again, and for the first time in years, he was looking forward to tomorrow. The shrill sound of the telephone echoed through the Montero mansion, snapping Alex out of his thoughts. He looked at the caller ID and sighed deeply when he saw his mother's name, Evelyn Montero, flashing on the screen. "Hello, Mom," Alex answered, trying to keep his voice neutral. "Alexander, darling." Evelyn's voice sounded sharp, even through the phone. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. We have urgent matters to discuss." Before Alex could answer, the line went silent. He ran a hand through his hair, feeling anxiety rise in his chest. His mother rarely made surprise visits, and when she did, it wasn't usually for good reasons. Exactly 10 minutes later, the sound of high heels echoed through the marble of the entrance hall. Evelyn Montero entered like a force of nature, her impeccable tailor and perfectly groomed hair contrasting with the stern expression on her face. "Alexander," she greeted coldly, planting a kiss in the air next to her son's cheek. "Mom," Alex replied, leading her into the office. "To what do I owe the honor of this visit?" Evelyn sat gracefully in one of the leather armchairs, her eyes critically scanning her surroundings before settling on Alex. "I've heard disturbing rumors, dear. Rumors about you harboring indigence on our property." Alex felt his stomach sink. He knew this moment would come eventually, but he hoped he would have more time to prepare both his mother and Claire and Lily. "These aren't rumors, Mom," he said calmly, deciding that honesty was the best approach. "I'm helping a woman and her daughter who were going through difficulties." Evelyn's face contorted in a mixture of shock and disgust. "Alexander, have you lost your mind? We have a reputation to uphold. What will people say when they hear that the Montero heir is playing welfare in the backyard?" "I'm not playing at anything, Mom," Alex replied, feeling his irritation grow. "I'm doing the right thing. Claire and Lily needed help, and I was in a position to offer it." "Claire," Evelyn repeated the name as if it was something unpleasant. "So you're already on first-name terms?" "Alexander, this is crazy. You need to send them away immediately." Alex stood up, walking over to the window. From where he stood, he could see the small house where Claire and Lily were. The thought of sending them away made his heart squeeze. "I won't do that, Mom," he said firmly. "They'll stay for as long as they need to." Evelyn stood up abruptly, her eyes blazing with anger. "This is unacceptable. You have responsibilities, Alexander, with the company, with your family, with your future. Speaking of which, I've arranged a dinner for you with Olivia Prescott next week." Alex turned around, staring at her mother incredulously. "Olivia Prescott, the socialite? Mom, we talked about this. I'm not interested in arranged marriages or relationships of convenience." "Don't be silly, Alexander," Evelyn scolded. "Olivia is an excellent match. Beautiful, well-educated, from a respectable family. She would be the perfect wife for the future CEO of Montero Enterprises." Alex felt a wave of frustration and anger rise in her chest. "What if I don't want to be the future CEO? Have you thought about that, Mom? What if I want to do something different with my life?" The silence that followed was deafening. Evelyn looked at her son as if seeing him for the first time. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice dangerously low. Alex took a deep breath, gathering his courage. "I'm saying that maybe I want more out of life than just following the plans you and Dad have laid out for me. Meeting Claire and Lily made me realize that there's more to the world than balance sheets and corporate mergers." Evelyn took a step forward, her eyes narrowing. Don't tell me you're falling for this woman from the street. Her name is Claire, Alex said firmly, and she's a talented artist who's been through hard times. Don't judge her without knowing her. That's ridiculous, Evelyn snorted. Alexander, you need to wake up to reality. This woman is probably only interested in your money. She saw an opportunity, and she's taking it. His mother's words hit Alex like a slap. You don't know what you're talking about. Claire is one of the most genuine and honest people I've ever met. She didn't even want to accept my help at first. Evelyn shook her head, her expression a mixture of disappointment and frustration. You were always so naive, Alexander. So easily manipulated by a sad story and a pretty face. Enough, Alex exclaimed, his voice echoing through the office. I'm not going to stand here and listen to you insult Claire or question my decisions. I'm an adult, Mum, capable of making my own choices. A tense silence fell over the room. Mother and son stared at each other, years of unmet expectations and failed communication hanging between them. Finally, Evelyn picked up her bag, straightening her shoulders. Very well, Alexander, if that's the way you want it. But don't say I didn't warn you when this situation blows up in your face. And don't expect your father or me to clean up the mess. With those words, she left the office, the sound of her heels echoing down the corridor until she disappeared. Alex sank into his chair, exhausted. He knew this conversation was far from over. His mother wouldn't give up easily. And there was still his father to deal with. Looking out of the window again, his eyes fixed on the small house. Despite the conflict with his mother, Alex felt a sense of peace settle in his chest. He knew, deep down in his heart, that he was doing the right thing. With a determined sigh, Alex stood up. Alex. He needed to see Claire to tell her about his mother's visit. They would face this together, whatever the future held. As he walked towards the small house, Alex couldn't help but smile. For the first time in his life, he was following his heart, not the expectations of others. And as scary as it was also incredibly liberating. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of the small house, illuminating Claire, who was sitting at the kitchen table, an untouched cup of coffee in front of her. Her fingers absent-mindedly traced the outlines of an old sketch she had found among her few possessions. Mom, are you going to paint today? Lily's excited voice interrupted her thoughts. The little girl was standing in the doorway, her eyes shining with anticipation. Claire smiled softly, although her eyes were still clouded with hesitation. I don't know, darling. It's been so long. Just then, a soft knock on the door announced Alex's arrival. He entered carrying a large cardboard box. Good morning, ladies, he greeted with a warm smile. His eyes met Claire's, and for a moment, something indefinable passed between them. What have you got there, Mr. Alex? Lily asked curiously, pointing to the box. Alex put the box down on the table, his smile widening. Well, Lily, remember when we talked about your mother taking up painting again? I thought maybe we could give it a little push. Claire stood up abruptly, her heart racing. Alex, you shouldn't... But before she could protest further, Alex was already opening the box, revealing a complete set of paints, brushes, and canvases. Wow, Lily exclaimed, her eyes wide with admiration. Claire stood paralyzed, a mixture of emotions crossing her face. Gratitude, fear, hope, all at the same time. Alex approached her gently. Claire, I know it's scary, but I saw your talent in that painting. The world needs to see more of it. Claire swallowed, her eyes watering. I don't know if I still can. What if I've lost my touch? Then you try again, Alex replied softly. And again, until you feel comfortable again. Lily moved closer, taking her mother's hand. Please, Mom, I want to see you happy painting again. Claire looked at her daughter, then at Alex, and finally at the painting materials. With a shaky sigh, she nodded. Okay, let's give it a try. The next few hours were a roller coaster of emotions for Claire. At first, her movements were hesitant, unsure, but gradually, as if awakening from a long sleep, she began to reconnect with her passion. Alex and Lily watched in respectful silence, occasionally offering words of encouragement. As the day progressed, the blank canvas came alive with vibrant colors and confident strokes. As the sun began to set, Claire finally stepped back, looking at her work. It was a garden scene seen from the window of the small house, but there was something else, an ethereal quality, as if the garden was on the threshold between reality and dream. "It's beautiful, Mom," Lily whispered, her eyes shining with admiration. Alex approached, his expression full of emotion. "Claire, that's extraordinary. You have an incredible gift." Claire looked at the painting, then at Alex and Lily. Silent tears streamed down her cheeks, but there was a smile on her lips. "I'd forgotten," she said softly, "how alive it made me feel." Alex put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "There's a local art exhibition happening next month. I think you should apply." Claire turned to face him, the fear momentarily returning to her eyes. "An exhibition? Alex, I don't know." "You can, Mom," Lily exclaimed enthusiastically. "Your paintings are the most beautiful in the world." Claire couldn't help but laugh at her daughter's unwavering confidence. She looked at the painting again, then at Alex. "Do you really think I should?" Alex nodded, his gaze firm and encouraging. "Absolutely. The world deserves to see your talent, Claire, and you deserve this chance." With a deep sigh, Claire finally nodded. "Okay, I'll do it." The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Claire painted with renewed passion, producing a series of works that captured the beauty and complexity of her journey. Alex helped with the preparations for the exhibition, while Lily became her mother's biggest cheerleader. On the night of the exhibition, Claire was nervous but determined. Dressed in a simple but elegant dress, a surprise gift from Alex, she entered the gallery hand in hand with Lily, Alex following close behind. The buzz of the crowd died down as Claire entered, and soon murmurs of admiration could be heard as people looked at her works. "Miss Davis?" A middle-aged man approached, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. "I'm Gregory Patel, the Herald's art critic. Your paintings are absolutely fascinating. The emotional depth, the technique. It's a pleasure to see your return to the art world." Claire was momentarily speechless, looking at Alex for support. He smiled encouragingly, and she turned to the critic with a shy smile. "Thank you, Mr. Patel. It's good to be back." As the evening progressed, more and more people came up to praise Claire's work. Collectors made offers, gallery owners left cards, and Claire felt like she was living in a dream. In a quiet moment, she stepped back a little, observing the scene before her. Lily was chatting animatedly with a group of admirers about her mother's paintings, while Alex was talking to some potential buyers. Claire felt a wave of emotion hit her. Just a few months ago, she had been on the streets, hopeless and directionless. Now here she was, reborn as an artist with people who really cared about her. Alex approached, a warm smile on his face. "How are you feeling?" Claire looked at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Grateful," she replied softly, "for everything, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." Alex took her hand gently. "You've always had it in you, Claire. I just helped you remember." At that moment, looking into Alex's eyes, Claire felt something change inside her. The fear and mistrust that had been her constant companions for so long began to melt away, giving way to something new and frighteningly wonderful. As the night drew to a close, Claire knew that this was not an ending, but a new beginning. She had rediscovered her passion, found her voice again, and with Alex and Lily by her side, she was ready to face whatever the future held. As they left the gallery, Claire's hand firmly entwined with Alex's, she felt truly awake for the first time in years. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Claire was eager to see where it would take her. The sun was setting over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, as Alex adjusted his tie in front of the mirror. His reflection gave her a look of uncertainty, so far removed from the confidence he usually displayed. "Mr. Alex?" Lily's voice snapped him out of his thoughts. He turned to see the girl standing in the doorway of his room, her large eyes full of curiosity. "Are you going to a party?" Alex smiled softly, kneeling down so that he was at her height. "Yes, Lily, it's an important company event." "You look sad," Lily observed with the frankness characteristic of children. Alex hesitated, surprised by the girl's insight. "I'm not sad exactly, just pensive." Just then, Claire appeared behind Lily, her eyes meeting Alex's in the mirror. "Is everything all right?" Alex stood up, turning to face her. For a moment, he was speechless, struck once again by Claire's natural beauty. "Yeah, everything's fine. Just nervous about the event tonight." Claire frowned, realizing there was more behind his words. "Are you sure you don't want me to go with you? I can ask Mrs. Martinez to stay with Lily." Alex shook his head. "No, it's not necessary. It's just boring corporate politics." He forced a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Claire stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "Alex, you know you can talk to me, right? About anything." Alex covered her hand with his, feeling the warmth of her touch. "I know, and I appreciate it. Maybe we can talk when I get back?" Claire nodded, her eyes full of concern and something else. Something Alex didn't dare name yet. "I'll be waiting." With one last look at Claire and Lily, Alex left, feeling like he was leaving his heart behind. The ballroom of the Ritz Hotel was dazzling, full of the city's business elite. Alex entered, immediately surrounded by familiar faces and polite smiles. "Alex, my boy." The thunderous voice of his father, George Montero, echoed through the hall. "Come here, there's someone I want you to meet." With an inward sigh, Alex approached his father, who was standing next to a stunning young woman in a red dress. "Alex, this is Olivia Prescott," George introduced, his smile broad but his eyes alert. "Olivia, my son, Alex." Olivia held out her delicate hand, a practiced smile on her red lips. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Alex. I've heard so much about you." Alex took her hand briefly, feeling uncomfortable. "It's my pleasure, Olivia." The next few hours were a blur of superficial conversations, forced laughter, and meaningful glances from her parents. Alex felt suffocated, as if the walls of the hall were closing in on him. In a moment of respite, he took refuge on a balcony, breathing in the fresh night air. His thoughts flew to Claire and Lily, to the simple moments they shared, to the sense of peace he felt when he was with them. "There you are," Olivia's voice reached him. She joined him on the balcony, offering him a glass of champagne. "Is everything all right?" Alex accepted the glass, more out of courtesy than desire. "Yes, I just needed some air." Olivia studied him for a moment. "You know, Alex, we don't have to pretend. I know our parents are trying to get us together." Alex looked at her, surprised by her frankness. "Olivia, She held up a hand, interrupting him. "It's all right. In fact, I'm relieved. You seem like a nice guy, Alex, but..." She hesitated, then continued quietly. "My heart already belongs to someone else, someone my parents wouldn't approve of." Alex felt a wave of empathy for Olivia. "I understand more than you think," he said softly. Olivia smiled, a genuine smile this time. "The woman you spoke about earlier, Claire, isn't it? She's special to you." It wasn't a question, but Alex nodded all the same. "She's extraordinary. She and her daughter Lily. They've changed my life in a way I never imagined possible." "So what are you doing here?" Olivia asked gently. The question struck Alex like a thunderbolt. What was he doing there? Trying to please his parents? Following a path that others had laid out for him? At that moment, as if a veil had been lifted, Alex saw his future unfold before him. Two distinct paths, one of fulfilled expectations and corporate success, but empty of true happiness. The other uncertain, perhaps difficult, but full of love, purpose, and the chance of a real family. "You're right," Alex said, a new determination in his voice. "I shouldn't be here." Olivia smiled, a glint of complicity in her eyes. "Go on, Alex, go to her." With one last grateful look at Olivia, Alex turned and walked back to the lounge. He found his parents talking to some executives. "Mom, Dad," he said, interrupting the conversation. "I have to go." Evelyn frowned. "But darling, the evening has only just begun." "And Olivia?" "Olivia is an incredible woman," Alex interrupted softly. "But she's not for me, and this..." He gestured to the hall. "This isn't my world anymore." George stepped forward, his expression a mixture of confusion and irritation. "What are you talking about, son?" Alex took a deep breath. "I'm talking about making my own choices, following my heart. Dad, Mom, I love you, but I can no longer live the life you planned for me." Before his parents could reply, Alex turned and walked towards the exit. He could hear his mother calling his name, but he didn't look back. As he drove back home to Claire and Lily, Alex felt a wave of emotions wash over him. Fear of the unknown, sadness at his parents' disappointment, but above all an overwhelming sense of freedom and hope. When he finally arrived home, he saw the light still on in the small garden house. His heart raced as he approached the door. Claire opened it even before he knocked, as if she had sensed his presence. "Alex? What happened?" Looking into Claire's eyes, Alex finally found the words his heart had been trying to say for weeks. "I chose," he said simply. "I chose you and Lily, if you accept me." For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Then, with tears in her eyes, Claire stepped forward and hugged him. And there, under the starry sky, Alex knew he had made the right choice. The road ahead would be challenging, but with Claire and Lily by his side, he was ready to face anything. The rising sun cast golden rays over the city, promising a new day full of possibilities. In the small house in the garden, Alex, Claire and Lily were having breakfast together, a scene of domesticity that seemed both surreal and perfectly natural. "So, what are we doing today?" Lily asked, her mouth full of colorful cereal. Alex and Claire exchanged glances, a mixture of love and apprehension in their eyes. "Actually, darling," Claire began softly, "we have something important to talk to you about." Lily lowered her spoon, her large eyes moving from her mother to Alex. "Is it something bad?" Alex leaned forward, his smile gentle. "No, Lily. At least we hope it isn't. Your mother and I, well, we love each other, and we wanted to know how you'd feel if we became a family. All of us, together." The silence that followed seemed to last an eternity. Then Lily's face lit up with a radiant smile. "You mean Mr. Alex is going to be my father?" Claire felt tears forming in her eyes. "If that's all right with you, darling." Lily jumped up from her chair, throwing herself into Alex's arms. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." The moment of joy was interrupted by the sound of the doorbell. Alex frowned, not expecting visitors so soon. He got up to answer it, Claire and Lily right behind him. When he opened the door, Alex felt his heart stop. Standing before him were his parents, George and Evelyn Montero, their faces a mask of determination. "Mom, Dad," Alex said, his voice tense, "what are you doing here?" Evelyn stepped forward, her eyes moving from Alex to Claire and Lily. "We've come to talk, son, about your future and ours." Alex felt Claire squeeze his hand in silent support. "Come in," he finally said, taking a step to the side. The group gathered in the living room, the air heavy with tension. Lily, sensing the heavy atmosphere, snuggled closer to her mother on the sofa. George was the first to speak, his voice softer than Alex had expected. "Son, after you left last night, your mother and I had a long talk. We realized that maybe we were wrong about a few things." Alex blinked, surprised. "What do you mean, Dad?" Evelyn sighed, her gaze softening as it landed on Lily. "We mean that perhaps we were too rigid in our expectations. We see now how much you've changed in the last few months, how much you've blossomed." Claire shifted uncomfortably next to Alex. "Mrs. Montero, Mr. Montero, I want you to know that it was never my intention to cause problems in your family. Alex has been incredibly kind to us, but if our presence is causing conflict—" "No," Evelyn interrupted, surprising everyone. "It's not that. In fact, we've come to apologize." A stunned silence fell over the room. Alex looked at his parents, searching for any sign of pretense, but found only sincerity on their faces. George snorted, clearly uncomfortable but determined. "Alex, we've seen the way you look at Claire. It's the same look I gave your mother when we were young, a look that unfortunately we let get lost in the pressures of business and society. Evelyn took her husband's hand, unshed tears shining in her eyes. We realized that we were projecting our own frustrations and fears onto you, darling. We wanted you to succeed so much that we forgot what really matters, your happiness. Alex felt a knot forming in his throat. Mom, Dad, I don't know what to say. Say that you forgive us, George said softly, and that you'll give us the chance to get to know this wonderful family you've found. Claire looked at Alex, her eyes full of love and support. Alex nodded, feeling as if a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Of course, he replied, his voice tinged with emotion. I'd love that. Lily, who had been watching the scene in silence, suddenly spoke up. Does that mean I have grandparents now? The tension in the room broke with soft laughter. Evelyn knelt down in front of Lily, her eyes shining. If you'll have us, darling, we'd love to be your grandparents. The next few hours passed in a whirlwind of conversation, laughter and planning for the future. George and Evelyn listened intently as Claire told her story, their eyes filling with admiration for the young artist's strength and resilience. As the sun began to set, the small house was filled with a new and vibrant energy. Plans were made for a family dinner at the Montero mansion, and Evelyn even suggested using her connections to organize a larger exhibition for Claire's works. As his parents said goodbye, promising to return the next day, Alex felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. He looked at Claire and Lily, who were waving happily to their new grandparents, and knew that his life had changed forever. Later that night, with Lily sleeping peacefully in her room, Alex and Claire were sitting in the garden, watching the stars. Do you believe all this? Claire asked softly, her head resting on Alex's shoulder. Alex smiled, pulling her closer. Honestly, it sounds like a dream, but if it is, I don't want to wake up. Claire raised her head, her eyes meeting his. It's not a dream, Alex, it's real, we're real. Alex leaned in, kissing her softly. When they pulled away, he saw his whole future reflected in Claire's eyes. I love you, he whispered. You and Lily. You're my family now. Claire smiled, tears of happiness shining in her eyes. And you're ours. As the couple stood embracing under the starry sky, the world around them seemed perfect. They knew there would be challenges ahead, integrating their lives, navigating society's expectations, building a future together. But with the love they shared and the unexpected support of the Montero family, they felt ready to face anything. In the small house in the garden, once a symbol of separation between two worlds, now rested the heart of a new family. A family built not out of obligation or expectation, but out of choice, love, and the transforming power of compassion. And so, under the soft glow of the stars, Alex, Claire and Lily embarked on the next chapter of their lives, not as strangers united by fate, but as a family united by love. If this story touched your heart, then don't forget to leave a like. Use the super thanks located just below the video to directly support the channel and help create more amazing content. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Now don't miss the next incredible story that's appearing on your screen. I greatly appreciate your support and hope to see you soon. Thank you for watching.